Namaste and welcome. Today is an exciting day. I have been getting a lot of requests to do a predictions video for Canada specific geography or Canada as a country. And due to the popular demand, I am going to give my predictions specifically for Canada today, as you all know. And I'll be sharing my screen as in when we speak, and then we keep going from there. It'll be more like a live interaction where I'll be sharing a lot of insights starting from the basics and then go about in the details from there. Right, so let's get started. The first and foremost we have is the title of the presentation, which is Applied Astrology Predictions for Canada 2026. My channel name is at the rate of TAGNEERAJ, tag Neeraj, and popularly known as Applied Astrology. I call it Applied Astrology as I try to apply in a day-to-day situation in a more practical, scientific way. Now, before we begin, quick disclaimer: astrology is like a light in the darkness. It gives a direction to us in life. It is not a material science where 2 plus 2 has to be 4 always. I kind of looked into the Canada's birth chart, which is Canada's Kundali or birth chart, the day Canada was born. Then we also tally that data with Mark Carney's birth chart, who is the current Prime Minister, as everyone knows. And we also look at significant world events, what is going to happen or what is more likely to happen in what time frame across 2026 as a year. So that will be the beginning of it. Before we even begin, it's very wise and great to look at the key transits as per Vedic astrology. Jupiter turns direct in Gemini, which will be its end of its retrograde period around 11th of March 2026. That's sort of, it has been retrograde so far in Gemini, the third sign that we have. Around June 2nd, 2026, we expect Jupiter to enter the Cancer zodiac sign, which is where it kind of becomes very happy and exalted. And around October 31, Jupiter moves into Leo, and around December it kind of goes back retrograde. I mean, as a layman, to understand in a better way, retrograde is like it appears to be big and smaller or closer to Earth, but it is actually not. It's just little slow down, like it will have lesser impact than anticipated in general terms. But that's so Saturn mostly stays in the Pisces zodiac sign, which is the 12th zodiac sign that we have, and it remains there throughout the year, very stable there. The planet Rahu would remain in Aquarius, and around 5th to 7th of December, where the major shift would change, and that will be the trigger of different world events from there on. Rahu would enter Capricorn, which will focus on, of course, structure, responsibility, and worldly ambitions of the world in general. And then Ketu, when enters Cancer sign, which is the fourth sign of the zodiac constellation that we have, and that shows spiritual alignment, detachment from emotional stuff, and all that. That will be like a major karmic calibration, I would say, from the end of December next year. We're talking about 2026, and it will Rahu would move then into from Aquarius to the 10th sign, which is Capricorn, which is ruled by the planet Saturn. So basically that shows that a more reality check. It will kind of start pushing the world where it is more karmic or destined to go in general. So basically people would have to pay for their deeds, more of karmic recalibration, where they will get what was due as per their karma. As you know, karma always works. And before we even look at Canada's chart, it's important to look at the current prime minister, because there is a close relation when you look at any mundane astrology, or let's call it when we are comparing two different the whole world, and specifically focusing on Canada as a country or geography in terms of what would happen with the predictions for this year astrologically. So we look at, of course, Mark Carney's birth chart. This guy has a great chart. As you can see, he seems to be lucky, and I happened to see his birth chart, which was again very interesting to see. So and there was a nice article out there in media which talks about specifically his time of birth. It was a great screenshot about when exactly he was born, so that gives us very, very accurate information. So that's basically 16th of March 1965. Without that I wouldn't have made his Kundali or the birth chart that you see. This is his birth chart. at 7:56 a.m. Fort Smith, Canada. Extremely hard. A lot of things I would maybe cover in a different video, but this is more about the whole country's context, as in so as to where we are headed. So if I look at his dashas or what time period he's running, he's somewhere here in Jupiter's Mahadasha, or we call it like the major time frame in English for anybody's life, which is about 16 years roughly. And then specifically, if you can see my cursor, we are ending November and we'll be heading to the next financial year, which is the moon. So Jupiter's moon is a blessing. So basically, this guy will have a lot of blessing, as you can see from the he is little blessed, and this is a good combination to have from the November 2025. You will obviously see that nice things in media. For the communications, we call it like the media house or journalism, online communication, siblings, house of siblings. The lot of that is basically in fifth. So it shows like a lot of internal communication which will work in his favor. People would think that he's like a nice guy. He's very watchful of the way he speaks. His communication skills are sort of growing after November this year till the whole of 2027. Like I mentioned, the time till March of 2027 to be precise. And then it shows because of this guy, it shows good growth. And I personally, the way I look at this chart is that there'll be good income from the cow, the dairy, the cheese, all that dairy products that we say, that's kind of covered there. That he will be very watchful of his words, very mindful, and then sort of growth phase. He seems very lucky in that time period. But unlike this, the Canada's birth chart doesn't talk like this. It is very very different. So I would speak a little bit on that as well. So that is the time period which he's running. He's a lucky guy. And again, it shows Mars and Moon things there. We will moving back to our presentation for today, which is the so that's what I mean by good to have this very very accurate. We'll talk about it in details. Now coming back to the Canada's birth chart, 9 a.m. as the standard time, and then July 1, 1867, as you see. Again, that's a very similar to the US chart. It is like a Leo rising chart, ascendant that we call it, the fifth thing that you see over here. So if you look at the dasha or time period, right, we are looking at this is like a Saturn major period across this from 2013 to 2032. So cleansing and the debts that has to be paid for the karma that Canada as a nation has been doing. So in that time period specifically, we are looking at over here, if you see, we are closely going to end the moon thing, which is, so Saturn moon is not a great thing to have. It's lost. You can't think like you want to do certain things for your own benefit, but it won't happen. Your mind will go work against you, which is like the ability to perform certain actions. The mind doesn't help. Mind will be not in line with the efforts that the country makes. So that's what has been happening. The good thing is, and not so great thing again, is that it ends by 27 January. So I would say that it is still okay time period, because again, Saturn in this chart rules over 6th and the 7th house, and then the lot of 6th and 7th house kind of is placed into 3rd. So karmic responsibilities with your neighbors, which is like a very good, and it is not expressive. So basically it means that is your sibling. In other words, if you were due to get 100% benefits from them because of the trade partnerships, everything that you would have had, you will be entitled to get roughly 50% of that only. Your efforts won't materialize. The drift on and on drift with your siblings, in this case the USA and the Mexico, or the NAFTA that we say in general, and then the relationship may not be as fruitful as it wanted to be, and then it will not materialize. So it shows karmic connection, and then shows secrecy in dealing. So it also shows secrecy in dealing between Canada and the USA, including the intel, the information, the privacies, and all of that, right? So it's basically little karmic in nature. So nothing much to talk about there, but the most crucial part which I wanted to cover is this one here, the shift that you see here, the planet and the sub time period, or we call it Antardasha in Hindi or Sanskrit terms. changes from the January of 2026, and it goes on till the 7th March 2027. Doesn't look like a great time period for Canada. Again, purely by Canada's chart. Carney is a lucky guy, so he'll be doing okay. It's mostly that Canada will be not doing that great as a country, but Carney will be okay. Maybe he's doing something fine. He's not a bad guy and all of that. Okay, so he'll be fine that way. But again, coming back to this part over here, now, if you look at Mars and the Saturn part, Saturn rules over 6th and 7th house, and the Mars is the lord of 1 and 8, which is the luck. I call it like luck, religion, and fate. And then the 8th is again the mother's house, or the house of property and all of that. So basically, the lord of 9th house and the lord of 4th house is placed in the ascendant itself sign, which is ruled by sun again. So it shows that the luck would become very aggressive and fiery, and then even internal matters. All the karmic things to do with the way the nation was formed, it will activate over here, and it is the era of Mars, and then Mars is pretty active as we speak. So I see to the education sector, education, family life, children, kids, education policy in general. I have a slide to cover that. All of this will totally be challenged. There will be a lot of heated arguments, debates. There are good things that people or the nation would take initiatives to fix education, especially to do with, this is more to do with the higher education, which is like the undergrad that we call it. And of course, there's a huge impact on the schools as well. So schools will somehow start to reform the policy. A lot of things, maybe the works may be addressed a bit, but you never know what's going to happen there. But in general, there is a high impact on the education policy, the internal matters of the country, which is the Department of Home that we say, or the Home Ministry, and then education, savings, kids, higher education, undergrad programs, and things which gives money to the country as a whole. So those are the things which gets impacted. May not be positive, a little bit on the negative side of things, and I'll elaborate further on my slides again. Moving back to my presentation where all of this is coming from. I'll not call them 1, 2, 3, but let's go in a sequential order. So Neptune would move into Aries. This first sign could blur established narratives, so and lead to public debates about identity. I mean, Donald Trump has been saying the 51st state of Canada and the governor to do and all on a lighter note, but basically all that could be coming into picture again, and shows federalism and community priorities. Now, Canadians might see renewed conversations around multicultural identity. Should we even have this? Was it even of benefits? All that tension around that. Indigenous relations, we know, everyone knows it has been challenged, but in the past, but then again there'll be revamp around that, new discussions, new key points to address. And the regional autonomy, is there a definite sovereignty, or it is to do with the US, or how do we manage that part and not being too dependent economically on the states again. So those things will resurface with emotional drive and idealism. It has happened in the past when the tariffs were announced, as everybody knows. The shelves were out of made in American items, made in Canada items for a priority. So that the nationalism would grow. That's a good thing, and internally there will be cohesiveness. So Canadians as a whole will try to unite, but again, I guess it will be old Canadians, not the new immigrants or the new Canadians or the temporary workers that we call it. And then the whole, it shows some conflicts with religions for sure, and identity itself. So one is luck, religion, identity. I call it three things. Luck gets challenged, religion gets challenged, and identity as a whole of the nation gets challenged. So that's what I read from that. Now, when I say around May or June 2, when Jupiter moves into Cancer, which is the point of excitement, it becomes very happy from there. That's the good news. Probably that's the biggest good news for this year. It shows expansion or optimism in public welfare. I told you about that. Housing, healthcare, and education policy initiatives. And there was a viral video, by the way, some guy from unfortunate the hospital incident that happened. I'm sure you would have seen by now, but those things are going to catch more attention, and it will give push to the economy and their policies as such. So growth and reforms in these areas could be highlighted politically, which is what is happening right now as I speak. Saturn would continue in Pisces throughout 2026. Now, this is one of the biggest challenges that anybody would face, and even Canada as a nation would face. And then it'll show nation to face emotional world issues and mature their policies through discipline and empathy. And would be somewhere here. Okay, again in Canada's chart, it's not a great thing to have anyway over here. When it moves here in a water sign Pisces, it will basically start troubling the chaos, which is basically the longevity. We call it the house of this vitality. Longevity gets affected. The vitality, basically the sources of income gets depleted. So this shows a possible recession, to be honest, and then job losses. Um, it's a little good for factory workers though, like the laborers, the unions, and the factory work. But again, anybody who was not working hard will probably get challenged in this time frame. Okay, so that's what we mean by this is where the Saturn would move, and it is actually right now here as I speak. So it will be challenged, of course, and from there it will look into the whole the relationship with your neighbors, friends, and partners gets challenged for Canada. Number one, communications becomes a toss. For Karni it is fine, but not for Canada as a country. So watch for official communications. Time where hospitals would start facing the brunt or the heat of all that they have been doing. Again, because of government policies. I'm not blaming anyone, but again, what we are seeing on media in general. And then after that is it shows some tightness in the budgets of hospitalization as well. So they'll be cut down. I don't know how and why, but they'll be cut down on hospital budgets, which is not a good sign to have. So I think there'll not be maturity, is what we see from what is going on in the media right now. And then it's good. It's good from an enemy standpoint that it'll show some resistance. So this planet will kind of safeguard Canada's interests against their enemies. So there'll be firm resistance. So let's say if states want to say, I want to make Canada my 51st state, but Canada will have firm resistance, and there's a karmic cycle, which is kind of, I will call it divine protection, which Canada has in this time frame, which is lucky to have. Okay, it goes by karma, but again, if Canada does good karma, the good things would happen. If not so great karma, then accordingly you face the fate. But that's how it will be aligned. But it's mostly saving grace, and there are eclipses and Mercury going retrograde here and there, and which will basically mean a lot of market correction. The fourth house, when I spoke about, it shows the corrections in real estate. I have a slide, but let's read through this. Market volatility, policy re-examination, diplomatic recalibrations, and for Canada this might show periods of economic review or recalibration, especially abroad policy narratives or trade policy dialogues. Okay, I think I discussed this already. I discussed the time period where it starts, but I told you about Mr. Carney's luck favor charm, which is working fine, and this is, so again, this is an important point to highlight. I think I already presented that to you, but this will be the toughest nut to crack. Okay, and I don't see any hope. In fact, Canada would be very happy, little okay till 27th of January. Starting February, everything goes for a chaos, and then full on chaos. This guy will be in 11th Aquarius and Capricorn, so he will be very happy there by now. So he'll be in Capricorn. Capricorn here is the 10th part, which again shows, but this is where a good news is that when this happens 27 onwards, Canada will be like a beast mode against your enemies. So the good news is Canada will fight back like anything against their enemies from 2027 to 2030. My prediction and in general, my overview is that we will be in a world war kind of situation by 2030, 31 and 32. So this shows good time period. It's like a luck in disguise, which is like, if the war starts here, Canada will be doing great till 2030. After that is not so great, but this is a good time period for Canada in terms of war, fighting the enemies, fighting the legal battles, fighting the hospitalization expenses in general, or the economy's downturn as a whole. So that ability to defend that and being immune to that is the power Canada will have in this time period. That's the good news to share. Market corrections would happen. So essentially, and to simplify for all of you, this is what I wrote. So Canada's real estate market potentially entering a deep correction or downturn through 2026 into 2027. Even now we are seeing it's more like a renter's market, which everybody knows, it's very well known in media now, but you will see declining property values. Declining property values, mortgage stress and defaults, banking liquidity pressure, okay, and then foreign investments will slow down, and construction and housing segment will stagnate. So everybody knows this, but this is going to be the realistic crash into, or a major correction into, Canada's real estate, or the bubble that we have been seeing. You can expect, this is again which I told in my the time frame I discussed again, but this will be recession-like signals will start from mid 2026, especially about April 26, November 16. These are the key dates where sudden spikes, downs, or the crash of stock can happen. Pressures will be on GDP, exports, and financial systems. Now we know, for instance, like I spoke about property and real estate, which is roughly, as I know, 14% of Canada's GDP is on real estate market itself. So that when it takes a toll, you know what's going to happen the next. Exports and financial systems, job impact in construction and housing sectors. Again, here I'll put a caveat. I mentioned that to you that may or may not, especially may not, because I know that this guy takes care of the labor part. So the real construction labor, factory workers, they should be doing fine as a whole. But again, it will go by the karma, to be honest. Like I said, this guy judges you on karma. He is the authority on that. Immigration reforms, we are already seeing there will be, of course, tightening. It will continue, but it will tighten the economic flows, okay? Reduce foreign state real estate speculation, institutional caution, or migrant link policy, which is already happening as I speak. It's going to grow across the next 1.5 to 2 years. But again, the way I see is it is not going to work in Canada's favor up till 2027 end, okay? So that will be the date which I will look at. I have with Canada's predictions. If you have any questions on my video, please feel free to leave in the comment section below. On my website as I speak, I'm trying my best to summarize as a whole what we are doing. I have another video on world prediction, recently did about 2 days ago. Please have a look if you wish to know what is happening to the world as a whole. I hope it helps you sincerely. To my friends in Canada and more out there, whoever is attached to Canada as a nation, it helps you and makes you, or help you in taking right decisions in your life. Thank you for watching.